Have you ever felt the sting of a backhanded compliment, the kind that sounds nice but cuts deep? You're grinding, growing, chasing a better version of yourself, and suddenly, the people closest to you start whispering, "You're lucky. Enjoy it while it lasts." You think you're better than us, don't you? These aren't just words. They're the subtle masks of jealousy, thrown at you when your progress starts to shine. But here's the truth. Your growth isn't their problem. It's their mirror. In this video on ZENLIGHT 8, we're diving deep into the 7 things people say when they can't handle your evolution, and more importantly, how to rise above it with Stoic wisdom and unshakable purpose. Stick with me until the end, because I'm sharing practical tools grounded in Stoicism that you can apply right now to silence the noise, protect your peace, and keep building the life you deserve. Let's uncover why they're acting this way and how you can stay unstoppable. Welcome to ZENLIGHT 8. Let's get started. You're lucky. 2 words, tossed out with a smile, maybe a laugh, like they're nothing. But they land like a stone in your gut, don't they? You've heard it before, maybe when you landed that promotion, bought your first home, or finally broke free from the grind that used to define you. On the surface, it sounds harmless, a casual nod to your success. But let's be real. There's a blade hidden in those words, sharp and deliberate. When someone calls you lucky, they're not celebrating your win. They're rewriting your story. They're erasing the nights you stayed up until 3 a.m., the mornings you dragged yourself out of bed when doubt was screaming louder than hope, the years you poured into building something real while they watched from the sidelines. They're not saying you're fortunate. They're saying, "I can't stand that you did what I didn't." Welcome to ZENLIGHT, where we cut through the noise and get to the truth. Today, we're starting with the first of 7 phrases that reveal jealousy for what it is, a reflection of their stagnation, not your success. Let's unpack your lucky and why it's not about you at all. It's about them, their regrets, and the mirror your progress holds up to their choices. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to handle this phrase with Stoic clarity and keep moving forward, no matter who tries to dim your light. I've been there. Years ago, I was clawing my way out of a dead-end job, working 60-hour weeks while teaching myself skills no one handed me. I'd spend my nights studying, my weekends sacrificing, my savings dwindling to nothing but books and coffee. No one saw the failures, the rejected applications, the projects that crashed, the moments I questioned if I'd ever make it. But when I finally broke through, when I landed a deal that changed everything, an old friend reached out. "Man, you're so lucky," he said, his voice dripping with that mix of admiration and resentment. I could have laughed it off, but it stung. Because he wasn't there when I was eating ramen for dinner, when I skipped vacations to keep grinding, when I chose discipline over distraction while everyone else was out living their best life. He didn't see the war. He only saw the victory. And to him, it had to be luck. Because if it wasn't, what did that say about his own choices? Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When someone calls you lucky, they're not commenting on your life. They're confessing their own discomfort. Your success, your discipline, your refusal to quit. It's a spotlight on their excuses. They see you running a marathon they never even started. And instead of lacing up their shoes, they point at the finish line and call it chance. Because admitting you earned it means admitting they could have too. And that's a truth most people aren't ready to face. Let's talk about luck for a second. Sure, it exists. Maybe you were born in a country with opportunities, or you met someone who opened a door. But luck is just a spark. It's not the fire. The fire is you. It's the hours you put in when no one was watching. It's the failures you turned into lessons. It's the courage to keep going when the world told you to stop. Think about it. How many people get a lucky break and squander it? A job interview they bomb because they didn't prepare. A chance meeting they fumble because they weren't ready. Luck might get you to the starting line, but it's your discipline that gets you to the finish. And that's what they can't handle. Your discipline exposes their procrastination. Your progress exposes their fear. Your fire exposes their ashes. I heard a story once about a woman named Sarah, a single mom who built a business from her kitchen table. She worked nights after her kids went to bed, teaching herself coding while juggling a full-time job. For 3 years, she barely slept. She missed birthdays, holidays, moments she'll never get back. But when her app finally launched and started making waves, her cousin smirked and said, "You're so lucky to have stumbled into this." Stumbled? Sarah didn't stumble. She crawled, fought, and bled for every inch of her success. But her cousin needed it to be luck, because if it wasn't, she'd have to face the fact that she spent those same 3 years scrolling social media, dreaming but never doing. That's the real sting of "you're lucky." It's not about denying your effort. It's about protecting their inertia. So, how do you handle it? Stoicism gives us the answer. Focus on what you control. You can't control their words, their envy, or their need to rewrite your story. But you can control your response. Don't argue. Don't defend. Don't waste your breath explaining your grind to someone who never showed up for it. Epictetus said, "There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will." When they call you lucky, let it slide. Smile, nod, and keep building. Because every step you take forward is a louder answer than any words you could say. Here's a practical tool you can use today: the Stoic Journal. At the end of each day, write down one thing you did that moved you closer to your goal, no matter how small. Maybe you read a chapter of a book, made a tough call, or said no to a distraction. Then write down one thing someone said that tried to pull you back. Maybe it was, "You're lucky." Reflect on it, not to dwell on their words, but to remind yourself of your truth. You're not lucky. You're relentless. You're not handed success. You forged it. And when you see that truth on paper, their words lose their power. Because the Stoic doesn't seek validation from the crowd. The Stoic seeks clarity from within. Let's be honest. The people who call you lucky aren't the ones who'll be there when the next storm hits. They weren't there when you were fighting through the dark, and they won't be there when you face the next battle. So why give their words weight? Your journey isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about honoring the version of you that kept going when no one believed, when no one clapped, when no one saw. You didn't need their applause then, and you don't need it now. So the next time someone says, "You're lucky," don't flinch. Don't explain. Just keep walking your path. Because while they're busy calling your fire luck, you're out there lighting new flames. And trust me, those flames will burn brighter than their doubts ever could. Let's move to the next phrase, one that's just as sneaky but hits even harder. Enjoy it while it lasts. Stay with me on ZENLIGHT. We're just getting started. Enjoy it while it lasts. It's the kind of phrase that sounds like wisdom, like someone's just trying to keep you grounded. But don't be fooled. There's a shadow behind those words, a quiet hope that your success has an expiration date. You've heard it, haven't you? Maybe when you finally got that raise, moved into a better place, or started walking with a confidence you didn't have a year ago. It's not a congratulations, it's a warning, dressed up as advice. It's jealousy wearing a mask, pretending to care while secretly wishing you'd stumble. Welcome back to ZENLIGHT 8, where we're peeling back the layers of the 7 things people say when your growth makes them uncomfortable. Today, we're diving into the second phrase, enjoy it while it lasts. This one's tricky because it's subtle, but it's a dagger aimed at your momentum. It's not about you enjoying your moment. It's about them needing you to doubt it. Let's break it down Stoic style, and I'll show you how to turn their words into fuel for your fire. I remember the first time I heard this. I'd just hit a milestone, nothing earth-shattering, but it was mine. I'd spent 2 years rebuilding my life after a rough patch, cutting out toxic habits, learning new skills, and saving every penny I could. When I finally got to a place where I could breathe, where I wasn't drowning in stress, someone from my old circle looked at my new apartment, my new rhythm, and said, "Nice. Enjoy it while it lasts." It was casual, almost playful, but it stuck with me. Not because I believed them, but because I realized what they were really saying. I hope this doesn't last, because if it does, I have to face why I'm still stuck. That's the heart of this phrase. It's not about Your success being temporary, it's about their fear that it's not. Your progress, your peace, your ability to rise above the chaos they're still wading through. It's a mirror they don't want to look into. Because if you can keep climbing, if you can keep building, then what's their excuse? Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." When someone tells you to enjoy it while it lasts, they're not warning you about life's unpredictability. They're revealing their own surrender. They've decided that success is fleeting, that growth is fragile, that the world will always win. And they need you to believe that too. Because if you prove them wrong, if you build something lasting, you shatter their story. You force them to confront the fact that they stopped daring long ago. Let's talk about what this phrase really does. It's not just a comment, it's a seed of doubt planted to make you second-guess your path. It's a quiet invitation to look over your shoulder, to brace for the fall they're already imagining for you. But here's the truth. Nothing lasts forever, sure, but that's not the point. The point is, you're not building for forever. You're building for now, for the life you want, for the person you're becoming. And every day you show up, every choice you make to prioritize discipline over distraction, you're proving that success isn't a fluke. It's a habit. It's a fire you feed with purpose, not a candle that burns out when the wind blows. I heard a story about a guy named James, a small-town kid who moved to the city to chase a dream in graphic design. He started with nothing. No connections, no fancy degree, just a laptop and a hunger to learn. For years, he took freelance gigs for pennies, stayed up late perfecting his craft, and said no to nights out so he could afford online courses. When he finally landed a big contract with a major brand, his old high school buddy saw his work online and commented, "Cool, man. Enjoy it while it lasts." James didn't respond, but he told me later that those words lit a fire in him. Not to prove his friend wrong, but to prove himself right. 2 years later, James's business was thriving while his buddy was still posting memes about the grind without ever grinding. That's what this phrase reveals. People who say, "enjoy it while it lasts," aren't rooting for your fall. They're scared of your rise, because your rise reminds them that they chose to stay still. So, how do you handle it? Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's in our control, our actions, our mindset, our response. You can't control their envy, but you can control how you carry yourself. When someone says this, don't argue. Don't try to convince them your success is real. They're not ready to hear it. Instead, use their words as a reminder to stay sharp. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Your best response is to keep building, to keep showing up, to keep proving that your success isn't a moment, it's a movement. Here's a practical tool you can apply today: the Stoic pause. When you hear "enjoy it while it lasts," take a breath. Ask yourself 3 questions. What did I do to earn this moment? What am I doing to protect it? And what's the next step to make it grow? Write down your answers. Maybe you earned this by working 50-hour weeks for a year. Maybe you're protecting it by saving 20% of every paycheck. Maybe your next step is signing up for that course you've been eyeing. This exercise grounds you in your truth, not their narrative. It reminds you that your success isn't fragile, it's forged. And here's a deeper Stoic lesson. Lasting success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about embracing the process. Every entrepreneur, every artist, every person who's ever built something real knows that setbacks are part of the deal. The difference is, you don't let setbacks define you. You let them refine you. When they say, "enjoy it while it lasts," they're betting on your fall. But you're not betting on anything. You're building. You're stacking habits, skills, and choices that make your foundation stronger every day. Let me give you another example. A friend of mine, Lisa, started a fitness journey after years of struggling with her health. She lost 50 pounds, not through some fad diet, but through discipline, meal prepping every Sunday, hitting the gym at 5 a.m., saying no to late-night snacks. When she posted a photo of her transformation, a coworker said, "Wow, you look great." Enjoy it while it lasts. Lisa could have let that comment shake her. Instead, she used it as fuel. She's now a certified trainer, helping others transform their lives, while that co-worker is still stuck in the same routine, complaining about the same problems. Lisa didn't just enjoy it, she built it to last. That's the Stoic way. You don't chase fleeting wins, you chase enduring growth. So the next time someone says, enjoy it while it lasts, don't take it personally. It's not about you. It's about their fear of being left behind. Smile, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. Smile like someone who knows what it took to get here and what it'll take to keep going. Smile like someone who's not done yet, because while they're whispering about your end, you're already writing the next chapter, and that chapter's about to get even bigger. Let's move to the third phrase, one that cuts deeper because it's not just about your success. It's about your character. You think you're better than everyone, don't you? Stay tuned on ZENLIGHT 8, because this one's a game changer. You think you're better than everyone, don't you? It's not a question, it's an accusation, thrown at you when you're quietly doing the work, when you're choosing discipline over distraction, when you're building a life that feels true to you. It comes out of nowhere, often with a smirk, a raised eyebrow, or that fake laugh that's meant to soften the blow. But make no mistake, this phrase isn't about your ego, it's about their insecurity. It's about the way your growth makes them feel small, not because you're looking down on them, but because you're looking up at your own potential. Here on ZENLIGHT 8, we're unpacking the 7 phrases that reveal jealousy for what it is, a mirror held up to someone else's choices. Today, we're diving into the third one. You think you're better than everyone, don't you? This one stings because it's personal. It's not just about what you've achieved, it's about who you're becoming. And I'm going to show you how to see through it, rise above it, and keep growing with Stoic strength. Let's go. I'll never forget the moment I first heard this. I was in my mid-20s, trying to pull myself out of a rut. I'd spent years coasting, saying yes to every invitation, every distraction, every conversation that went nowhere. But something shifted. I started waking up at 5 a.m. to read, to write, to invest in myself. I stopped showing up to every happy hour, stopped scrolling mindlessly, stopped letting my days slip away. I wasn't trying to be better than anyone. I was trying to be better than the version of me who was stuck. But one day, I turned down a last-minute invite to a party, and a friend I'd known since high school looked at me and said, "What, you think you're better than us now?" The words hit like a punch I didn't see coming. I wasn't judging them. I wasn't comparing. I was just trying to build something for myself. But to them, my choice to change was an attack. My discipline felt like arrogance. My boundaries felt like betrayal. That's the truth behind this phrase. When someone says you think you're better, they're not seeing you. They're seeing themselves. They're seeing the gap between where they are and where you're going. And instead of closing that gap with effort, they try to close it with words. They try to pull you back to the version of you that made them comfortable, the one who didn't challenge their choices, who didn't make them question their own path. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, wrote, "You must change to grow, and growth is the only evidence of life." Growth isn't a betrayal of others, it's a loyalty to yourself. But for those who've chosen to stay still, your change is a threat. It's a reminder that they could have chosen differently. They could have said no to comfort, to excuses, to the easy road, but they didn't. And now your progress is a spotlight on their stagnation. They don't say this because you're acting superior. They say it because your growth makes them feel inferior. And that's not your fault. It's their mirror. Let's break it down. This phrase often comes when you're at your quietest, when you're not shouting about your wins or waving your achievements in anyone's face. It comes when you're focused, when you're saying no to things that no longer serve you, when you're choosing solitude over shallow company. I know a woman named Maria who experienced this. She grew up in a tight-knit community where everyone knew everyone's business. When she started prioritizing her career, skipping family gatherings to work on her startup, the whispers started. "She thinks she's too good for us now," her aunt said at a barbecue. Maria wasn't trying to be better than anyone. She was trying to build a life that didn't revolve around the same old patterns. But her choice to grow, to set boundaries, to chase a vision, felt like a rejection to those who stayed in the same place. That's what this phrase is really about. Rejection. Not your rejection of them, but their rejection of change. Your discipline, your clarity, your refusal to settle. It's a mirror they don't want to look into, because if they did, they'd have to ask themselves, why am I still here? Why haven't I started? And those questions are heavy. It's easier to accuse you of arrogance than to face their own avoidance. So, how do you respond? Stoicism gives us a clear path. Don't react, reflect. Epictetus said, "You become what you give your attention to." If you give your attention to their accusation, you're letting them steer your ship. Instead, give your attention to your purpose. When someone says this, take a moment. Ask yourself, am I living true to my values? Am I growing into the person I want to be? If the answer is yes, their words are just noise. They're not your truth, they're their discomfort. Here's a practical tool to apply today. The Stoic boundary exercise. Next time you hear you think you're better, write down what boundary you were setting when they said it. Maybe you said no to a draining conversation. Maybe you chose to work on your goals instead of gossiping. Then write down why that boundary matters to you. Maybe it's protecting your time, your energy, your vision. This exercise isn't about proving them wrong, it's about proving yourself right. It's about reminding yourself that your growth isn't a judgment on them, it's a commitment to you. And let's talk about the bigger picture. Growth always creates distance. When you start choosing discipline over distraction, purpose over popularity, you'll lose people. Not because you're better, but because you're different. And that difference scares those who've built their identity on staying the same. But here's the Stoic truth. You don't owe anyone your stagnation. You don't owe them a version of you that's easy to manage. You owe yourself a life that feels authentic, that challenges you, that pushes you to become more. I've seen this play out in countless stories. A young man quits drinking and his buddies call him boring. A woman leaves a toxic job and her coworkers say she's gotten too big for her britches. Someone starts a business and their family whispers they're not the same anymore. These aren't criticisms of you. They're confessions of their fear. They're afraid of change. Not because it's wrong, but because it's hard, and you're doing the hard thing. That's what makes you unstoppable. So when someone says, you think you're better than everyone, don't shrink. Don't apologize for your growth. Don't dim your light to ease their discomfort. Smile, not out of pride, but out of peace. Smile like someone who knows that growth isn't about being better than others. It's about being better than who you were yesterday. And keep going, because while they're stuck throwing words, you're out there building a legacy. Let's move to the fourth phrase, one that tries to erase your entire journey with a single line. Must be nice to have everything handed to you. Stay with me on ZENLIGHT. This one's going to hit home. Must be nice to have everything handed to you. It's the kind of line that sounds like a joke, but it's not. It's a gut punch, delivered with a grin, meant to make you question everything you've fought for. You hear it when your hard work starts to pay off, when you get that new job, buy that car, or finally step into a life that feels like yours. On the surface, it's playful, almost teasing. But dig deeper, and it's a calculated attempt to rewrite your story, to strip away the sweat, the sacrifice, the sleepless nights that got you here. Welcome back to ZENLIGHT 8, where we're breaking down the 7 phrases that reveal jealousy for what it is, a reflection of someone else's regrets, not your reality. Today, we're tackling the 4th phrase. Must be nice to have everything handed to you. This one hurts because it's not just about your success. It's about denying the battle you fought to earn it. Let's dive in, Stoic style, and I'll show you how to see through this lie and keep building with unshakable clarity. I remember hearing this phrase at a turning point in my life. I'd spent 3 years grinding, taking on side hustles while working a 9-to-5, saving every dollar, learning skills I didn't even know I needed. I failed more times than I can count. Projects that tanked, pitches that got rejected, dreams that felt like they'd never come true. But I kept going. And when I finally closed a deal that gave me a glimpse of freedom, a colleague I hadn't spoken to in years saw me driving a new car and said, "Must be nice to have everything handed to you." I laughed it off at first, but inside, it burned. Because he didn't see the 80-hour weeks, the maxed-out credit cards, the moments I wondered if I'd ever make it. He didn't see the war I fought in silence. He only saw the victory, and he needed it to be a gift, not a conquest. Because if it wasn't a gift, what did that say about his own choices? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." When someone says this to you, they're not commenting on your life. They're confessing their own avoidance. They're saying, "I can't imagine working as hard as you did, so it must have been easy." They're saying, "I need your success to be a fluke, because if it's not, I have no excuse." Your journey, your discipline, your refusal to quit, it's a mirror they don't want to face. Because if you earned it, if you built it step by painful step, then they could have too. And that truth is heavier than they're willing to carry. Let's talk about what this phrase does. It's not just a dismissal, it's an erasure. It tries to wipe out every moment you chose courage over comfort, every time you said no to instant gratification for the sake of a bigger vision. It's their way of saying, your struggle doesn't exist, because if it did, I'd have to question why I never fought mine. But here's the reality. Nothing worth having is handed to you. Success isn't a lottery ticket you stumble across. It's a house you build, brick by brick, with your own hands, and every brick you laid came at a cost. Time you didn't have. Money you couldn't spare. Energy you didn't think you could muster. I know a guy named David who embodies this. He grew up in a rough neighborhood, no trust fund, no connections, just a dream to own his own business. He worked double shifts at a diner, saved every tip, and spent his nights learning how to code. When his app finally took off, making him enough to buy a modest house, a neighbor said, "Must be nice to have rich parents or something." David just shook his head. Rich parents? He was the first in his family to graduate high school, let alone college. But that neighbor needed his success to be a handout, because admitting it was earned meant admitting they'd never tried. That's the power of this phrase. It's not about you. It's about their need to stay comfortable in their own story. So, how do you respond? Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's in our control, our effort, our mindset, our integrity. You can't control their narrative, but you can control yours. When someone says this, don't defend your journey. Don't pull out the receipts of your struggle. They're not interested in truth. They're interested in comfort. Instead, use their words as a reminder of your strength. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it." Your life is the embodiment of your philosophy. Every choice you made, every sacrifice, every moment you kept going when it would have been easier to quit. That's your answer. Here's a practical tool for today, the Stoic gratitude practice. When you hear, "must be nice," take 10 minutes to write down 3 things you did to earn your success. Maybe you stayed up late studying while others partied. Maybe you saved $100 a month for a year to invest in yourself. Maybe you faced rejection and kept going anyway. Then write down 1 thing you're grateful for about that struggle. Maybe it taught you resilience. Maybe it showed you who you really are. This practice doesn't just silence their words, it strengthens your resolve. It reminds you that your success wasn't handed to you, it was forged in fire. And let's zoom out for a second. The people who say this aren't your enemies. They're just lost in their own story. They're not attacking you because you're wrong. They're attacking you because you're right. You're living proof that discipline works, that sacrifice pays off, that dreams don't have to stay dreams. And that scares them. Because if you can do it, they have no reason not to. So they rewrite your story. Call it luck, call it privilege, call it anything but what it is. Hard won, hard earned, hard fought. But you know the truth. You know the nights you didn't sleep, the risks you took, the doubts you silenced. You know the person you had to become to get here. So when they say, "must be nice," let it slide. Let them cling to their fiction. You've got a reality to build, and that reality is bigger than their doubts, stronger than their words, and brighter than their shadows. Keep going, because while they're busy rewriting your story, You're out there writing your future. Let's move to the fifth phrase, one that takes aim at how you got here. I heard you only got it because of connections. Stay with me on ZENLIGHT 8. This one's going to reveal a lot. I heard you only got it because of connections. It's a whisper, not a shout. A rumor that floats behind your back, rarely to your face. You hear it secondhand, maybe from a friend of a friend, or you catch it in the way someone looks at you when your name comes up. It's the kind of line that's meant to undermine everything you've built, to reduce your years of effort to a single handshake or a lucky phone call. But let's be clear, this phrase isn't about your success. It's about their refusal to see it for what it is. Welcome back to ZENLIGHT 8, where we're dissecting the 7 phrases that reveal jealousy's true face. Today we're tackling the 5th one. I heard you only got it because of connections. This one's insidious because it doesn't just question your achievement, it questions your worth. But with Stoic wisdom, we're going to see through it, rise above it, and keep building. Let's dive in. I felt this one personally. A few years ago, I landed a big opportunity, a project that took me from obscurity to a stage I'd only dreamed of. It wasn't easy. I'd spent 5 years honing my craft, pitching ideas, getting rejected, and starting over. I networked. Sure, but not the way people think. I didn't have a rich uncle or a secret club membership. I built relationships through work, showing up, delivering, earning trust one step at a time. When the news broke, I overheard someone at a party say, "Yeah, he only got that because he knows the right people." It was like a slap. They didn't see the 12-hour days, the emails I sent that went unanswered, the skills I built in silence. They didn't see the hustle. They saw the headline and decided it was all about who I knew. That's what this phrase does. It's a shortcut for their mind, a way to dismiss your grind without doing the math. Because if they did the math, they'd have to face their own equation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." When someone says you got it because of connections, they're not crying for you, they're crying for themselves. They're mourning the opportunities they didn't chase, the relationships they didn't build, the work they didn't do. Your success is a reminder that life rewards those who show up, not those who wait for an invitation. And instead of showing up, they point to your network and call it cheating. Let's talk about connections for a second. Yes, they matter. A mentor might open a door, a friend might make an introduction. But here's what people don't want to admit. Doors don't stay open if you're not ready to walk through them. Connections might get you in the room, but it's your preparation, your competence, your grit that keeps you there. I know a woman named Aisha who built a career in tech from scratch. No degree, no industry insiders, just raw talent and relentless hustle. She went to meetups, asked questions, offered value before she asked for anything in return. When she landed a role at a top firm, someone from her old job said, "I heard she only got it because she knew the hiring manager." Aisha laughed when she heard it. She'd met that manager at a conference where she stayed late to ask for feedback on her portfolio. That wasn't luck, that was strategy. That wasn't a handout, that was earned trust. But the person who said it needed it to be a fluke, because admitting Aisha earned it meant admitting they hadn't. That's the core of this phrase. It's not about your connections, it's about their disconnection. Their disconnection from effort, from risk, from the courage it takes to build relationships that matter. So, how do you handle it? Stoicism teaches us to let go of what we can't control. You can't control the rumors, the whispers, the stories people tell to make themselves feel better, but you can control your focus. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be a writer, write. If you wish to succeed, show up. Build your skills, build your network, build your character." When someone says this, don't waste your energy defending your journey. Instead, use it as a reminder to keep building your value. Here's a practical tool, the Stoic networking map. Take 15 minutes this week and write down 3 people you admire in your field. Not people who can get you somewhere, but people who inspire you to be better. Reach out to one of them, not to ask for a favor, but to offer value. Maybe it's a thoughtful question, a piece of feedback, or a small way you can help. This isn't about shortcuts. It's about building real connections through real effort. That's how you turn whispers into silence. Because the truth is, people who say this aren't your audience. They're not the ones who'll cheer when you win or lift you up when you fall. They're the ones who'll always find a reason to call your fire a fluke. But you know better. You know the late nights, the closed doors, the moments you kept going when no one cared. You know the relationships you built weren't handouts. They were handshakes, earned through trust and delivery. So let them talk. Let them whisper. While they're busy inventing stories about your success, you're out there creating it. And that creation is louder than their rumors ever will be. Let's move to the sixth phrase, one that shifts the focus to something we all chase. Money isn't everything. Stay with me on ZENLIGHT. This one's going to change how you see freedom. Money isn't everything. You've heard it, right? Usually when you're finally getting ahead, when you're no longer counting pennies or sweating over bills, it comes from the same people who never said a word when you were scraping by, when you were choosing between groceries and gas, when you were lying awake wondering how you'd make rent. But the moment you start building a life with a little breathing room, they're quick to remind you, money isn't everything. It's not wisdom, it's resentment dressed up as philosophy. Welcome back to ZENLIGHT 8, where we're unpacking the 7 phrases that reveal jealousy's true face. Today, we're diving into the 6th one. Money isn't everything. This phrase isn't about helping you find balance. It's about making you question your freedom. Let's break it down with Stoic clarity and see it for what it is, so you can keep building without guilt. I felt this one in my bones. A few years ago, I was drowning in debt, $20,000 in the hole, working 2 jobs, barely keeping my head above water. No one preached about the deeper things in life back then. No one told me money wasn't everything when I was eating instant noodles for the 3rd night in a row. But when I finally paid off my loans, started saving, and took my first real vacation, in years a family member looked at my new life and said, "Money isn't everything, you know." It wasn't a lesson, it was a jab. They didn't say it when I was struggling, they said it when I was thriving. And that's when I realized, this phrase isn't about your values, it's about their discomfort with your progress. Seneca wrote, "Wealth is the slave of a wise man, the master of a fool." Money isn't the enemy, and neither is your success. But to someone who's still stuck, your financial freedom is a spotlight on their chains. They need to believe you're chasing the wrong thing, because if you're not, then they have to face why they're still running in place. Let's get real. Money isn't everything, but it's something. It's not the key to happiness, but it's the key to choices. It's the ability to say no to a toxic job, to buy a plane ticket to see someone you love, to invest in your health or your future. It's not about buying fancy cars or flexing on social media. It's about buying time. Time to think, to grow, to live on your terms. When I was broke, I didn't have that. Every day was survival mode, every decision weighed down by fear. But when I started climbing out, when I could finally afford to take a weekend off or see a doctor without panicking, I realized money doesn't buy happiness, it buys freedom. And that freedom is what they envy. They don't say this when you're struggling because your struggle makes them feel safe. But when you break free, when you start living a life they only dream about, they need to knock you down a peg. They need to call your freedom shallow, because admitting it's real means admitting they could have fought for it too. I know a guy named Mike who lived this. He grew up in a working-class family, sharing a bedroom with 2 brothers, watching his parents work overtime just to get by. He started his own landscaping business, mowing lawns at 16, saving every dollar. By 30, he owned a fleet of trucks and a house of his own. When he threw a housewarming party, an old friend showed up, looked around and said, "Money isn't everything, man." Mike just nodded, but later he told me, "That guy didn't say a word when I was sleeping 4 hours a night to build this. He only spoke up when I had something to show for it." That's the truth of this phrase. It's not about your priorities, it's about their regrets. So, how do you handle it? Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we control. Our actions, our values, our response. You can't control their bitterness, but you can control how you use your resources. When someone says this, Don't feel guilty for your progress. Don't apologize for the life you've built. Instead, use their words as a reminder to stay grounded in your purpose. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Money isn't your master, it's your tool. Use it to amplify your values, to protect your peace, to create a life that's not just about surviving, but thriving. Here's a practical tool: the Stoic budget. Take 20 minutes this week and write down 3 ways you're using money to align with your values. Maybe you're saving $50 a month for a course that'll grow your skills. Maybe you're donating $20 to a cause you care about. Maybe you're setting aside $100 for a family trip that'll make memories. Then write down 1 way you can refine your spending to better reflect your purpose. This isn't about guilt, it's about clarity. It's about reminding yourself that money is a means, not an end. And when you're clear on that, their words lose their sting. Because here's the deeper truth: the people who say this aren't against money, they're against your freedom. They're against the idea that you've earned the right to choose your path while they're still asking permission from life. But you don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You need your own integrity, your own discipline, your own vision. I've seen this play out in countless lives. A teacher who saves enough to start a side hustle gets told she's too focused on money. A single mom who pays off her debt gets called materialistic. A student who lands a scholarship gets reminded that money isn't everything. They're not wrong to want more. They're right to fight for it. And so are you. So when someone says, "Money isn't everything," smile. Smile like someone who knows what it's like to have nothing and build something anyway. Smile like someone who understands that money isn't the goal. It's the tool that lets you live your truth. And keep building, because while they're preaching from the sidelines, you're out there creating a life they can only criticize. Let's move to the 7th and final phrase, one that's less about what you have and more about who you are. You've changed. Stay with me on ZENLIGHT. This is where it all comes together. You've changed. It's the final blow, the last phrase in our journey through the 7 things people say when your growth makes them uncomfortable. It's not a compliment, though. It might sound like one at first. It's an accusation, delivered with a mix of surprise, disappointment, or even betrayal. You hear it when you start showing up differently, when your words carry more weight, when your presence feels more grounded, when your choices reflect a clarity you didn't have before. They don't say it when you're lost, when you're stuck, when you're drowning in the same old habits. No, they say it when you start rising, when you start becoming the person you were always meant to be. Welcome back to ZENLIGHT, where we're wrapping up our exploration of jealousy's subtle masks. Today we're diving into the 7th phrase, you've changed. This one's heavy because it's not just about what you've done, it's about who you are. But with Stoic wisdom, we're going to see it for what it is and turn it into a badge of honor. Let's dive in. I heard this phrase at a pivotal moment in my life. I'd spent years drifting, saying yes to everyone, blending into the background of my own story. But then I made a choice. I started saying no to things that didn't serve me. I started waking up early, reading books that challenged my thinking, setting boundaries that protected my energy. I wasn't trying to be different, I was trying to be real. But when I skipped a friend's last-minute hangout to work on a project that mattered to me, he looked at me and said, "Man, you've changed." It wasn't a celebration, it was a judgment. Like I'd betrayed the version of me he liked best, the one who was always available, always easy, always small. But here's the truth. I didn't change to hurt him. I changed to save myself. And that's what this phrase is really about. When someone says you've changed, they're not mourning your transformation. They're mourning their own stagnation. Your growth, your discipline, your refusal to stay stuck, it's a mirror they don't want to look into. Because if you can change, if you can evolve, if you can become more, then what's stopping them? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Is any man afraid of change? What can take place without change? What then is more pleasing or more suitable to the universal nature?" Change isn't a flaw, it's a necessity. It's the heartbeat of growth, the proof that you're alive, that you're not just existing, but becoming. But to those who've chosen to stay the same, your change feels like a rejection. Not because you're pushing them away, but because you're pulling yourself forward. You're choosing a path they didn't dare to take, and that choice makes them uncomfortable. I know a woman named Rachel who lived this. She grew up in a small town where everyone followed the same script. Get a job, settle down, don't rock the boat. But Rachel wanted more. She started writing, sharing her thoughts online, building a following. When she moved to a bigger city to chase her dream, her old friends started whispering. "She's changed," they said. "She's not one of us anymore." But Rachel wasn't running from them. She was running toward herself. She wasn't abandoning her roots. She was planting new ones. And that's what they couldn't handle. Her transformation wasn't a judgment on their lives. It was a spotlight on their choices. They could have written their own story, but they chose the script they knew. So how do you handle it? Stoicism teaches us to embrace what's in our control, our actions, our values, our growth. You can't control their reaction to your change, but you can control how you carry it. When someone says you've changed, don't apologize. Don't shrink back into the version of you they liked better. Instead, see it as a milestone. You've changed because you've grown. You've changed because you've dared to want more. You've changed because you've chosen to live, not just exist. Here's a practical tool, the Stoic Vision exercise. Take 15 minutes this week and write down who you're becoming. Not what you're achieving, but who you want to be. Maybe it's someone who speaks their truth without fear. Maybe it's someone who protects their time like a treasure. Then write down one small step you can take this week to get closer to that person. Maybe it's saying no to a draining commitment. Maybe it's starting a new habit like journaling for 10 minutes a day. This exercise isn't about proving anything to them. It's about proving everything to yourself. Because the truth is, change is hard. It's messy. It's lonely. You lose people along the way, not because you're wrong, but because they're not ready for the version of you that's emerging. And that's okay. The Stoic doesn't cling to the past or the people who loved it. The Stoic clings to purpose, to integrity, to the fire that keeps them moving forward. I've seen this in so many lives. A student who starts speaking up in class gets told they're not the same. An entrepreneur who sets boundaries with family gets called distant. A parent who prioritizes their mental health gets labeled selfish. But they're not selfish. They're self-full. They're filling their cup so they can show up as their best selves. And that's what you're doing too. So when someone says, "You've changed," don't flinch. Don't explain. Don't try to fit back into the box they built for you. Smile, not out of arrogance, but out of truth. Smile like someone who knows that change isn't a betrayal, it's a birth. You're not just changing, you're becoming. And while they're busy judging the person you used to be, you're out there building the person you're meant to be. That's the Stoic way. Not to fight their words, but to live your truth so loudly they can't ignore it. We've walked through the 7 phrases that reveal jealousy for what it is. Not a reflection of your worth, but a mirror of someone else's struggle. From "you're lucky" to "you've changed," these words aren't about you, they're about them. They're about the discomfort of watching you rise, the fear of facing their own choices, the resistance to a truth you embody. That discipline, courage, and purpose can build a life worth living. Stoicism teaches us to let go of what we can't control, their words, their envy, their stories, and to hold tight to what we can, our actions, our values, our growth. So here's my challenge to you today. Don't just hear this, live it. Take one small step this week to protect your peace. Maybe it's setting a boundary with someone who drags you down. Maybe it's writing down 3 things you've earned through your own effort. Maybe it's starting that project you've been putting off because you're afraid of what they'll say. Whatever it is, do it. Because the life you want isn't waiting for their approval. It's waiting for your action. Here on ZENLIGHT 8, we're all about building that life, one choice at a time. If this video resonated with you, drop a comment below and tell me, which of these phrases have you heard and how did you rise above it? Your story might just inspire someone else to keep going. And if you're ready to dive deeper into Stoic wisdom and self-improvement, hit that subscribe button and join the ZENLIGHT 8 community. We're not just talking about growth, we're living it. Let's keep building together.